Okay. Hi, everybody. Good morning. Chag Sameach.
Chag Sameach.
Bezrat Hashem. Okay, so we are continuing in our journey through Tehillim. And last week we began Parak Kuf Lamed Beis and 132. And one of you has a remarkable story to say about this particular parak, but it's not my story to say. So later on, if you would like, you can share with the group the amazing hashkacha of 132. For that, if you want to. Yeah, good. Chance of 132. Okay. Oh, Janice Sugarman just joined, so mazel tov.
Oh, there we go. She's not joined yet there. Janice, we just wished you mazel tov on your grandson.
Is that she just joined the grandparents?
No. Baruch Hashem. This is an addition, Baruch Hashem.
Okay. Okay, so okay, so let's start. Let's see, we were on pasuk which pasuk did we leave off last week? Anybody remember?
Yud, I think.
I was going to say Yud.
Yud Aleph.
Yud Aleph. Yud Aleph.
Yud Aleph.
Okay, Yud Aleph.
Go back. Let's just go back to Tet, Parak pasuk Tet, just for a second to review 3 psukim, because I want to show you something. Because you'll see that the psukim are repeating themselves. So pasuk Tet, Kohanecha Yilbashu Tzedek. Remember, we're talking. David HaMelech is saying, he's telling Hashem. His desire to build a Beis HaMikdash. And good morning. Let's see, Paul, is that you? You just said I should tell you a story. Is that what you just said? Yeah?
Yes.
Okay. You could tell it later. I like the way you told it. I was mamish blown away. You can't, we'll say at the end, okay? You'll say at the end. I'll leave you the last 5 minutes. So you have to say for the whole shir because you can tell the story at the end.
Oh, I'm saying.
Okay, so so we said that David HaMelech is talking about building the Beis HaMikdash, and he's talking about the self-sacrifice that he himself extended so that he could show Hashem his devotion to wanting to build the Beis HaMikdash and getting everything ready, and that the Kohanim should be dressed in their beautiful clothing. The Kohanim will be dressed in their uniform. Here, the uniform is called Tzedek. Tzedek means righteousness. How could you be dressed in righteousness? And how could you, v'chasidecha yiraneinu, all the Hasidim are going to be running and are going to be rejoicing. Andrea, you could give like a course right now in seeing how you're checking your eggs and making your, I guess I'm assuming you're making challah or something for Shabbos. Okay, so all of this is Bavur David Avdecha. David HaMelech is saying to Hashem, do this for me. Now he calls himself in the third person. Do this all for David Avdecha, your servant. Al tashev pnei Mashiachecha. Don't turn away the face of your Mashiach. Here, the Mefarshim say he's talking about his own son, Shlomo, who was also anointed to be king. So for the sake of the Father, don't turn away the Son. We could say that to Hashem whenever you say this pasuk. You can have it on your own children. Bavur David Avdecha, for the sake of the Father David, who is serving Hashem, please don't turn away my children. Okay, so now I want to learn with you something a little bit in Kabbalah. So you see the Kohanim here are dressing in tzedek. Tzedek means righteousness. It means actually din. If you look down to the bottom of the parak, in Pasuk Tet Zayin, it says, "V'chohanecha al bish yesha." The Kohanim are going to be dressed in, Hashem says, I will dress them in Yesha. Yesha means Yeshua, means salvation. So we have that, and the second part of that pasuk, and all the Hasidim are going to rejoice, is paralleling that first part in Pasuk Tet. So you see Pasuk Tet and Pasuk Tet Zayin are the same pasuk almost, repeated with a little bit of a nuanced change. We see that a lot in Tehillim, where David HaMelech repeats with a little bit of a change, repeats with a nuanced change. So the tzaddikim explain that Kohanim, generally, you know that the blessing for the Kohanim, the blessing that the Kohanim say is that they should, before the duchening, before they bless us, is v'tzivanu levarech et amo Yisrael be'ahava, with love. And they draw out the be'ahava. That's when they sing it, and everybody says Amen. So the Kohanim have to have the midah of ahava, of love, or of chesed, loving kindness. Chazal tell us that the Kohanim, that the Shevet Levi, all Levim, and the subset of Levim is Kohanim, they have a midah of love, of chesed. That's why Aharon HaKohen, he was always running around making peace between people, as you know. And so how is it if the Kohanim are masters of love and of trying to create and enhance love, then why are they dressing in Pasuk Tet? Why are they dressing in tzedek? Tzedek means justice. It means din. It means judgment. It's the opposite of love. So the Chelkas Yoshua, the tzaddikim explain that what the Kohanim, the power of the Kohanim was to take din, to take harshness, to take difficulty, and to wrap it in love. That's called hamtakat hadinim, sweetening the judgments, And so I want to say this shir for the zchus of the Refuah Shlema of Rochel Bas Babi Elka, my precious cousin. And sweetening the judgments means when you have to go through something difficult, but Hashem makes it as easy as possible. That's what the Kohanim knew how to do. They knew how to take a difficult situation and either pray to Hashem to sweeten it or help the person to get through it in a way that made it bearable for them. So this pasuk, when you say this pasuk, we are all Kohanim, meaning the Jewish people is Mamlechas Kohanim, and a woman is a Kohen. We talked about that last week, that we have the halachos, many of the halachos of the Kohanim were given over to women. And so we have to learn, Yilbishut Tzedek, we have to learn to dress, to wrap the difficulties in love and in sweetness. That's the way that we help people get through. Even if it's just that we are pouring our love onto a person who's going through something difficult. That's what Pasuk Tet means. And the same thing is repeated in Pasuk Tet Zayin. And whenever an idea is repeated, Chazal tell us that David HaMelech takes poetic license to repeat things because he wants us to pay attention to them. He wants us to emphasize them. Okay, now we're up to so now Bavur David Avdecha. Now here's a parent davening for their child. Remember that David was davening for his son. So you say this pasuk Yud when you're davening for your child, and you say to Hashem, listen, for my sake, give my child Yeshua for my sake. You know that parents will give up all of their merits so that their children should have all good things. Now pasuk Yud Aleph. Nishba Hashem David. Now remember we're saying this on Yom HaAtzmaut. Today's Yom HaAtzmaut here in Eretz Yisrael. It's pushed off, really it's on Shabbos Yom HaAtzmaut, but they pushed the celebration to today so that it would minimize the breaking of Shabbos, because how could you celebrate Yom HaAtzmaut on Shabbos with, barbecues and Air Force shows and parades, so they made it for today. And we know that the whole purpose of Eretz Yisrael is not about It's not about just having a safe haven for Jews. It's not just about that. Because if it were just about that, as they gave, what's his name, the Herzl, they gave him Uganda. They said, okay, take a country in Africa. If you just need a safe haven, take a country in Africa. It's a great country, lots of natural resources, surrounded by 10 trillion African natives, instead of being surrounded by 10 trillion of our cousins here. Whatever it is, Eretz Yisrael is not just about a safe haven for the Jewish people. It's that you cannot keep the Torah properly unless you are in the right place. And so the right place, the place that resonates with Torah and with holiness, is only the place of the root soul of the Jewish people, which is here in the land of Israel. The fact that Hashem removed the government from the British and gave it over to the Jews, that was a perk. But the celebration today should be a longing for the completion of the Beis Hamikdash. That's what we should be celebrating and saying, now at least we're one step closer because of the amount of Jews that are living here, and hopefully eventually we will have authority to build the Beis Hamikdash. Maybe Mashiach will build the Beis Hamikdash, but it's all about the Beis Hamikdash. It's not about politics. So don't mix up your days today. Nishba Hashem David, Hashem swore to David, emes, in truth, lo yashuv imena, in a way that Hashem will never go back on that promise. And what is the promise? Mi pri bitnecha ashis l'chiselach, from the children of from your own physical children, I will put on the throne after you all of David's descendants, all of the kings, the future kings of Israel, or the future Mashiach, who is the ultimate human king of Israel, and who will help the world to find Hashem. That has to be from David HaMelech's family, has to be from David HaMelech's children. Im yishmeu vanecha britina, but Hashem is making now, he holds on to a qualifier. And he says, if your children will be kings forever and ever. Now we know that the kingship split up, and the state of Israel, thousands of years ago, split. We had a civil war. What was that civil war? Because of this pasuk. Im yishmeu vanecha briti, if your children guard the Torah, my treaty with you, my covenant with you, my contract with you, if your children guard that, and this teaching that this Torah that I'm teaching them, even their children forever and ever, Yeshavu will sit on your throne. So Hashem made a qualification. Hashem said, I'm promising that the throne of David, that your family will always be the rulers. But the qualification is, as long as they are Torah rulers, as long as they're like you, David, that you're a servant of Hashem, that you keep every single mitzvah, that you keep every single extra, that you're totally devoted to me. If you can teach that to your children, and if they will remain in that way, then they'll stay on the throne. So what ended up happening? What ended up happening is that Shlomo HaMelech, of course, David's son, was a perfect righteous tzaddik. But then Shlomo's son, Rechavam, so he made a big mistake. And his big mistake was that he did not follow in the advice of the advisors that he should have listened to. And he made things harder. He wasn't as generous of spirit as he should have been. And because of that, his own Rebbe, Yeravim ben Nevat, his own Rebbe rebelled against him and made a second kingship, split the country in half. That eventually led to the watering down of Judaism in the entire land of Israel. And even though Yeravim ben Nevat himself originally was a righteous person, But everybody went off just a little bit. Rechavam, David's grandson, he went off a little bit in that he was too harsh and he was not as generous of spirit as his father and grandfather. And Yeravam ben Nevat, his ego got into the way. Both of these things destroyed almost our people. So we have to be very careful with our egos. Now, I am not, Baruch Hashem, a politician, but I know that one of the greatest tests of anyone in power is ego. And by the way, it doesn't just have to be a politician. If you're the principal of a school, if you're the CEO of an institution, if you're the financial director of a company, whatever it is, when you're in a position of power, you have to be very, very careful with your ego. So let me tell you a story that I just heard yesterday, because it fits into our parsha so beautifully. You know, the parsha talks about Shmiras HaLashon, and we women are trying to work very hard on Shmiras HaLashon, being careful with what we say, that we shouldn't say Lashon Hara. They say the story. Now, I didn't verify the source of this. I just heard it. I heard someone say this, and I trust that person, so we can verify the veracity, the accuracy of it. The Chavetz Chaim, when he wrote the book Shmiras HaLashon, he was young. And he went to a certain Rav, and he asked for a approbation, for a haskama, that the Rav should read the Sefer, and he should approve it. He should write an approval, a letter of approval. So he went to this older Rav, and the Chavetz Chaim was a younger man. And the older Rav looked at him, looked at the Sefer, read through it a little bit, looked at the Chavetz Chaim, and supposedly said to him, you're such a young person. How do you have the chutzpah to write such a Sefer like this? And he would not give him a letter of approval just based on his own age. And the Chavetz Chaim left the room very, very disappointed. And he was outside of the house of this Rav. And somebody came over to him who happened to have been the Rav's brother and said to him, listen, I was just in the house. I heard what just happened. You know, I see you're upset. So you should know something. My brother's like that. He yells and that's all he says. He yells and he was almost about to say, and the Chavetz Chaim went like this, I don't want to hear Lashon Hara. I don't want to hear anything about your brother. Don't tell me anything. Like that. That's how he went. Now the brother, this older Rav, saw that situation and said, oh, come back into my room. Now I see that you walk, you talk. I see that you didn't accept Lashon Hara from my own brother, was about to tell you that I'm an impatient person, which I am. Come back into my room, and here's a letter of recommendation. So you know that ego is a very, very big thing that we all have to work on. Ultimately, according to the deepest teachings of the Torah, the ego is the worst enemy that we have, because it makes me have a war, a milchama with God. It's my desire against God's desire. And the Jew is supposed to bend our desire and do Hashem's desire. We have to always, it has to be shagur b'peh shelanu. It has to be something that we repeat all day long. Hashem, what do you want from me? Hashem, what should I do? Hashem, what should I say? Hashem, what do you want from me in this situation? Hashem, how should I react? All day long. Ask Hashem. What does Hashem want? If that's question number one, then when our ego gets in the way, we have to evaluate, is this what Hashem wants, or is this what my ego, my pride, my own desire to be superior, my desire not to be proven wrong, etc. So in Yishmeru Vanecha Briti, if your kids follow in my paths, then they'll be okay forever. So now again, how do we extend this? None of us are David HaMelech right now, even though some of us might be descendants of David HaMelech. But how do we make this relevant to us? How do we personalize this? Is exactly, we're talking about our own children. We're davening for our own children. And we're saying, Hashem, you said to David, and therefore I'm extrapolating and saying, you're saying to me that if your kids will follow in my path, in Hashem's path, then I'll keep them on the throne of power. So I'm asking you, Hashem, My intention is, let my kids follow in the path of Torah. Let my kids follow in the path of Torah. That's what your intention is. When David HaMelech is, when David is repeating, when David HaMelech is repeating what Hashem said to him about his own son, we repeat that pasuk and we have in mind our own son, our own children. So I just read a story about the Belzer Rebbe, the first Belzer Rebbe who came to Eretz Yisrael, that he settled in Tel Aviv. And I was privileged to see the Belzer Rebbetzen a few times, different Belzer Rebbetzens, amazing, amazing women. But the older Belzer Rebbe, when he first came to Tel Aviv, when he came to Israel, he went to Tel Aviv, and his Hasidim wanted to settle in Yerushalayim Kodesh. But he went to Tel Aviv, and he used to walk in the street Shabbos, and he would say good Shabbos to everybody. He would say good Shabbos to all the Tel Avivis, in whatever manner they looked, whatever dress they were dressed, whatever, however they were, he said good Shabbos. And they would all say back to him, good Shabbos Rebbe, good Shabbos Rebbe. They called him Rebbe. So, or Rabbeinu. So one time, one of his Hasidim came from Yerushalayim to visit for Shabbos in Tel Aviv. And he was walking with the Rebbe, as the Rebbe was walking, saying good Shabbos to all the Tel Avivis. And the Chassid couldn't take it anymore. And he says, Rebbe, you have to leave this place. Look at them, they look like Goyim. That's what the Chassid said. The Rebbe was shocked. He was shocked. He stopped. And he said, how dare you? How dare you call anyone a Jew, Goy? However they're dressed, it's only a Purim costume. I can swear to you, says the Rebbe, as soon as Mashiach comes, they're going to throw off the Purim costume and scream out, Shema Yisrael Hashem Elokeinu Hashem Echad. And the Hasidim said it took the Rebbe 3 or 4 days to recover from that incident, from that interaction. That no one should call another Jew of name and should judge a Jew by the outside. The Rebbe said we're at the very, very end of time. The fact that any Jew is here, big miracle. Never ever to look at the externals. That's what he says. He says it's a Purim costume. You should know that there was a big tzaddik who once told me that the end of time is all one big Purim story. One big Purim story. Even though we do the parsha of the week and we learn the Zman and all of that, but really, we are in Purim right now. Okay, so we're davening for our kids, our children and our grandchildren, our descendants and our friends, everybody. Im yishmeru vanecha b'risi, please Hashem, let my kids hold the bris, veidosi, and the eidos, the mitzvos, zolam deim, teach them. So we're taking that a little bit out of context and we're referring it to our kids. Ki v'char Hashem b'tzion, and now we're asking Hashem to bring everybody back to Eretz Yisrael. Now, David HaMelech was saying this in Eretz Yisrael. He was saying it in Eretz Yisrael. All the Jews at the time who were alive in planet Earth were in Eretz Yisrael at the time that David HaMelech was saying this. There was nobody in exile. So David HaMelech makes a statement and says, Ki b'char Hashem b'tzion, Hashem has chosen Zion. Zion is Eretz Yisrael. Iva lemoshavlo. The word Iva, it's an interesting word. Iva means he has a passion that this should be his place. Lemoshavlo, this is his dwelling place. Hashem desires that this should be his place. Now, how do you say this pasuk? You have to say it. We all have to say it with utmost yearning that those of us who are already here should be zocheh to remain here with in all good ways and all good things. And those who are not here, you don't need me to tell you, you're chalishing to be here. Especially on a day like today, where everybody is acknowledging, even the whole world is acknowledging today the state of Israel, the country of Israel, the Jewish people back in Israel on any level. So David HaMelech is telling us now, a lot of these psukim you know from davening, because Chazal incorporated these psukim into the Siddur. Here, Hashem says he chooses Zion. Now, what is Zion? So Chazal tell us interesting. The word Zion could refer to one of 3 places. It could either be the entire land of Israel, it could be the city of Yerushalayim, or it could be the Beis HaMikdash. All of those three are always the definition of Zion. And Hashem chooses all of those three.
Sorry, what's the last one?
The Beis HaMikdash. Again, Eretz Yisrael, the whole land of Israel is called Zion. That's why they made up the name Zionists, Zionim, because it's Zion. Zion is a name for Eretz Yisrael, the whole land. Now let me show you something very, very powerful about the word Zion. You're looking at it in your Tilim, or you're writing it down. Zion is divided into two sections. The Tzaddik is the first part, and then the Yud, Vav, Nun. The letters Yud and Vav and Nun are all physically very similar, right? They're all a straight line, a short straight line, a regular straight line, and a long straight line, right? So there's a concept of straightness, being straight. Yashar, like we said, shir, the first word of this parak Tilim, shir malat, yashar, go straight. So in Zion, you have to go straight. You have to be straight. But there's another very big teaching of Zion, and that is Yud and Vav and Nun spell out the word Yavan. Now, what's Yavan? Yavan represents the third of the exiles that segued into the fourth exile. Yavan and Romi were the last two. First one was Bavel, second was Paras, third Yavan, fourth Romi. What does that mean? The third and the fourth is the Greek culture and Rome, the Roman, which turns out to be nowadays Western civilization. So what's with Yavan? Such an interesting thing, Greek culture. Do we like Greek culture or do we not? Well, it depends on how you define Greek culture. Right now, none of us would be able to learn together unless we had this device, this scientific screen that is allowing all over the world for us to come together to learn Torah. That's called Greek culture. That's called Yavan. That's called the science, hard science of Yavan. Now, there's a problem with that because we could fall in love with it, or we could become assimilated and only want that kind of a culture, secular, scientific, whatever word you want to use. Therefore, there's a tzaddik. The letter tzaddik is placed in front of the word Yavan and creates the word Zion, meaning in order to really access and utilize the Yavan, the contributions of Yavan to the world, you must be associated with the tzaddik. You must be following the laws of the tzaddik, Moshe Rabbeinu, Moshe Tzidkenu, Mashiach Tzidkenu. Otherwise you drown. A person could drown in Yavan. They could drown in the secular world. And we see, sadly, so many of our brothers and sisters have drowned. There's a pasuk in Tehillim that says, "Tavati b'vei Mitzula." I drowned in Yavan. What does it mean? You drowned in Yavan? It means you got enamored and fell in love with the secular world, and you worship it to a greater or to a greater extent or to a lesser extent. So here, Zion. Why is David Melch using the word Zion? Because he's telling us, in order for us to survive till the end of time, which is what we're in right now. Have you noticed the world's a little bit crazy? In order to survive till the end of time and to get to Zion, you have to hold on to the tzaddik. David was a tzaddik. All the tzaddikim and the teachings of the tzaddikim. The Torah is tzaddik. Remember we said before, Kohanecha yilbeshu tzedek in Pasuk Tes? It means the Torah. That's the only way we're going to survive. That's why Zion is called Zion. And guess what? Zion is exactly the gematria, 156, exactly the gematria of Yosef, because Yosef was the primary tzaddik that we had, the first person in the Jewish world After Noach was Yosef Tzaddik. Okay. Zos menuchasi ade ad, says Hashem, this is the place that I am dwelling forever and ever. Po eshev, says Hashem, I'm staying here. Ki ivisiha, because I love it. That's Beis Hamikdash. That's Eretz Yisrael. That's Yerushalayim HaKodesh. Eretz Yisrael, Yerushalayim HaKodesh. Old city, Beis Hamikdash, Kodesh HaKadoshim. That's what Hashem is saying. I'm going to stay here. And it's not that I'm just going to stay. This is my menucha. And this is where a Jew, only here can a Jew find menucha. And I'll tell you that you all know this. You all know you come into Eretz Yisrael, you just feel like, a relief. And that happens to me when I go to the old city, when I go to the Kotel. I just sit and I say, oh, thank you. Like it's such a relief to breathe. You have menucha only here. We might have like a temporary respite in Chutz La'aretz. Hashem is good in that way, because you have to survive. People have to survive in Chutz La'aretz. But when you come here, you find that's when your neshama is menucha, is resting, and you're able to ground yourself in reality. I'm looking, Andrea, at your beautiful kitchen, and I'm going to tell you the following story. So this is all inspired by Andrea and her beautiful kitchen. Maybe Rachel also and her beautiful, her fridge a little bit. So I have a friend. She should be well. She's very wealthy, and she has a magnificent edifice. And she once came to visit Eretz Yisrael, and she had just made an extension, a very expensive extension. And I was annoyed with her. Like, why'd you do that? Why'd you make your house nicer and bigger? And I said to her, and she, I didn't say it to her like that, but whatever. I was thinking, why? So then somehow in the conversation, she was talking about Eretz Yisrael. She wants to come here, she wants to live here. So I said to her, Derech Hagav, what about your house and the extension? She said, I'm saying it right now, I give it all up to live in Eretz Yisrael. And I was so proud of her. But she really has a good setup. She says, and she had just made this extension. She had just made something, it was so crazy gorgeous. And she said, I give it up. Now, for a woman to have a good kitchen, like I see you have a kitchen there. Is that your kitchen, Andrea, that you're in? And yeah, okay, it looks to me like that's a pretty fancy kitchen. Yeah, anyway. And I have a beautiful kitchen. It's very simple, old, small, and I love it. And I wouldn't give it up to have a fancy kitchen. So every one of you who's in your fancy kitchen, you say what my friend said. Say it. Whenever you have time. Hashem, I want to come to Eretz Yisrael. And I want Eretz Yisrael to be the way it's supposed to be. Eretz Yisrael is the way it's supposed to be. It's just the Purim costumes have to come off of all the externals here. Because Hashem wants to be here. Hashem says, I'm chalishing to stay there. Tzeda barecha barecha. And you should know something. Your food in Eretz Yisrael, your tzeda, your food there, I'm going to bless that food. It's going to be plentiful. Barecha barecha. I'm going to make plentiful. Don't worry about parnasa. It's going to be okay. Hashem feeds us here. Hashem, okay, maybe it's not like, I don't know fancy names of fancy foods. I'm not a foodie. Maybe it's not like super steak every night. Even though people can do that also now, but Hashem takes care of us. Barech, tzeda, barecha, barech. Evyoneha, even the poor ones, aspia lachem, I'm going to make them full. I'll give them enough bread. They'll be full. We have our beautiful restaurants here that anybody can go into. Baruch Hashem, none of you need to go into such a restaurant. We have restaurants here. They look like restaurants. Only they don't have a big sign outside, and they don't have like a fancy window. And only the people who need to know where they are. You go in though, it looks like a restaurant. You sit down, you pay 1 shekel. You have to pay a shekel, you pay 1 shekel, and you have a full meal. A beautiful full meal. The restaurants that I've seen have two different ways, or you could have a waiter coming to you and asking you what you want. Most of them are, it has like self-serving, like, there's a lot of food and then you go down with your tray and you pick what you like and you sit down. You have a full meal. I was once sitting on a bus years ago. Listen, anybody can teach you Tehillim, but not everybody knows my stories. I was once sitting on a bus years ago and a lady sat down next to me and she asked me where to get off to go here in Har Nof. There's a chasana hall. So she said, like, where's the chasana hall, so-and-so. So I told her, I'll tell you because I'm going to get off afterwards. I'll tell you when to get off and how to walk there. So she started to say to me, I'm going to the chasana of so-and-so. Maybe you know them, and of course that's how, an older woman. And then she started to tell me, she said, she lives near Shuk Machane Yehuda. And for breakfast and lunch, today, she doesn't have to go supper to the restaurant, but for breakfast and lunch today, she went and she told me what she had to eat in one of these type of restaurants. I don't know why in the world she started to talk to me. Of course, it's for Hashem. Hashem tells us, Hashem made it happen so I could tell you the story. This story happened, I don't know, 20 years ago. She said, this morning, and there's a certain word, the name of it in Hebrew, the restaurant, how they call it here. She said, that's where I eat. That's what she said about herself. That's what she eats. And this morning they had such good eggs. Delicious. And for lunch today, they actually gave fleischiks. Usually they give fish for lunch and supper for fleischiks for supper. But today for lunch, they gave fleischiks. And I'm going to a chasna, I'm going to get fleischiks there, she said. So I'm having twice fleischiks. And she was so excited, not at all ashamed. That's the way it is. That's how life is. So she was Nebuch and Evyonah. She was poor, but she was so proud and full and fed. The Chana, here we have the same pasuk again, the Chana. Now, the Kohanim in the Beis HaMikdash, the Kohaneha, her Kohanim means the Kohanim of Yerushalayim. Again, Albish Yesha, I'm going to clothe them in salvation. They're going to be wearing clothing of salvation. That means they're going to be able to bless you, that you should have Yeshua. Do you know that here in Israel, we get Kohan, we talked about this last week, we get Birkas Kohanim every single day. Okay, and women don't go to shul necessarily every single day. Every Shabbos, you get Birkas Kohanim. And I'll tell you a cute story. Now that we have, we had outdoor minyanim for the whole year. We didn't stop once. There was always minyanim going, Baruch Hashem, and everybody had access to minyanim, even women. So the minyanim that they were down the block from me, on Rehov Kablan, there were 3 different buildings, and each building had a different minyan. Why? Because everyone started at a different time. You had the 7:30 start, the 8 o'clock start, and the 8:30 start. The 8 o'clock start minyan in a building needed to be because in that building is an older rabbi, and that's the minyan was really for him. He should be well. They built him like a little cave in the knisa, in the lobby of the building. And so at a certain point in the winter, there was only one Kohen for all these 3 minyanim, because there was the other Kohen went away for Shabbos. There were no guests Kohanim. So there was one Kohen, and there are actually 2 Kohanim in those 3 minyanim that are regulars that live in the building, and they're both very, very tall men, very tall and big men with very big booming voices. So anyway, at one point, a couple of weeks ago, actually, when it was still winter, there was one Kohen, and so he had to go from minyan to minyan. He kept going. I didn't even know if he was able to daven, because each of these minyanim started 3 different times, and he has to bless the people after the repeating of the Shemona Esrei of Shachris, and after the repeating of the Shemona Esrei of Musaf. They kept calling him. He was in the minyan that I was davening, but they kept calling him, and he had to stop in the middle. He didn't even know if he could get an aliyah, because he was the only Kohen. So he had to get an aliyah in the minyan that he was in, but he had to be available for the other minyan. And he was just all up and down, going up and down the block, saying Birkas Kohanim, Birkas Kohanim. Hashem is promising, I'm going to dress them in the ability to give you a blessing. Now, since all Jews are Kohanim on a certain level, as again, the Pasuk in Chumash says, Mamlechas Kohanim, so we can all give each other blessings, and that's why we always bless each other. Don't minimize your giving of anybody a blessing. Keep giving blessings, even if it's just have a nice day. Don't stop giving blessings. And don't minimize if somebody gives you a blessing. And ask for blessings. And all the Hasidim, all the Jews in Eretz Yisrael are going to be rejoicing. Doubly rejoicing. Sham, only there in Eretz Yisrael, Atzmiach, Keren, David. That's where Mashiach is going to come. Atzmiach means I'm going to sprout, bring forth from life. I'm going to give life to Keren. Keren means the power of David. That means Mashiach. Arachti ner l'Mashiach. I already set up a candle. That means a neshama, a soul, for my Mashiach. Oivav and his enemies, Al bishboshes. I'm going to dress them in humiliation. Ve'alav, but on Mashiach, yatzitz nizro, his nazer, his crown, will sparkle. This is our promise. This is our promise here in Eretz Yisrael on this very special day when people are so happy to be here and when you're so happy to tune in. That's why so much why I'm not teaching today. Today is an official holiday. None of my classes, all my classes are not, but I wanted you to have a class to connect you to Eretz Yisrael. And your eyes are here. I have no doubt about it. And you're going to give up all your fancy kitchens to come. And maybe you'll even get a fancy kitchen here, because guess what? We're so rich here that we also have fancy kitchens. You can get yourself a gorgeous kitchen here. Okay, now I want you, if you don't mind, sweetie pie? Are you still on, Paula? Where are you? You mind telling the story? Is it too embarrassing for you?
No, I'll manage.
Okay, this story, Paula, what's your Jewish name?
Paula Devora.
Paula Devora sent me a text from last week, right after the class, that Mamish, it was Mechayem me. You know what I mean? Mamish gave me life. This because I didn't tell you the PS to the story. You tell the story, then I'll tell the PS to the story. Listen to this story from Perek Kuf Lamed Beis.
So I'll take it back to a Rosh Chodesh Nisan. For the very first time, I joined a 40-day shidduch group, and I was given a kapitel, and we finished it come Yom Tov, and then beginning of last week, I didn't know they were going to start again, and they asked me to join again, and I thought, I don't know if I can take it on this time. It's quite hard to commit 40 days always. And the day before joined another shidduch group, which is a rolling group. And I thought, maybe not. And I said, okay, I don't think I can do it this time. So I gave up my kapitel that I was doing. And then later in the day, I had charot, and I thought, no, maybe I should do it. And there were just 3 that I could choose from that I wanted to take. I could take 101, 102, or 132. My initial thought was, I'll take the short one. That would be the easiest. And I thought, no, Kuf Lamed Beis is talking a bit better to me. So I took Kuf Lamed Beis. Come Wednesday night, I thought, I wonder if Rebbetzen Silber is going to speak about 132. No way. Forget it. It's not going to happen. And I switched on in the morning, Thursday morning, and she starts talking. Hang on, did I just hear right? 132? And I was going to be busy in the kitchen. No, I took out my pad and paper and I sat down and wrote instead, because if I don't write it down, I'll forget it. And I had it written down. And then the other things that the Rebbetzin said in it was, you have to push yourself that little bit more. And I'm also thinking, HaKadosh Baruch Hu was just so kind. He said to me, look, you did it. You pushed yourself. Here, I'm giving you a present. Now you understand this kapitel more as well. So thank you, Rebbetzin Silber.
Okay, so that story just blew me away, because I'm going to tell you now a secret. So Paul is saying that, she Dafka, a few days before, she decided to, to yes, join, not join, it's too much, too little. Too much is also not good. You have to push yourself, but not too much. It's hard to know how much to push yourself to. So, and then she said that she chose that one, Kuf Lamed Beis, 132. And somehow in her mind, she somehow thought, wow, it would be so nice if I could learn it and know it about it. And I don't know how she associated me with it, but whatever she said was so nice to learn about it. And then, lo and behold, the next day, we started learning 132. Okay, that's her story. And she was so grateful because the messages in the Tehillim were actually personal for her. Now I'm going to tell you my side of the story that I didn't tell you. Okay, so I'm sitting in the morning thinking I had a whole plan of what to teach, what Perek Tehillim to teach. And it wasn't 132. And I'm preparing and I'm thinking and I'm asking Hashem, I always ask Hashem, please help me. And Hashem said, like I felt inside of me, I don't know, this Perek that I'm preparing at this, every single Perek of Tehillim is jewelry, is infinite value, and I'm not connecting. So I said, all right, maybe it's not the one I'm supposed to teach. And I just closed the Tehillim, and I opened it up again, and I went to Kuf Lamed Beis. And I'm reading Kuf Lamed Beis and saying, oh, Taka, you're right, that's what we should learn. I understand this is all about Mashiach, it's about the Beis HaMikdash, it's going to take me 2 weeks, and I'll finish on Yom Ha'atzmaut, perfect timing. Eretz Yisrael, Beis HaMikdash. So I think Hashem really changed my mind because of you, because it should give you a little bit of a chizuk, and that's how Hashem operates. And I'm sure there's thousands and millions of other reasons, but when you told me that story, I was inspired because I knew that I wasn't going to teach 132, and that somehow Hashem rearranged the world. That we should learn together 132. So thank you so much for being a part of my life and for pushing. Now somebody just told me that they have a similar story, but I don't know if you want to say it, but you certainly, anybody who wants to can certainly say. I'll tell you why. Thank you, Donna, because this is Hashgacha Pratis stories. Oh good, so Rebecca's going to tell us a story also. Hashgacha Pratis stories are what keeps us going, because we see mamish Yad Hashem, we see the hand of God in our life. There's nothing more satisfying than that. So let's hear, Rebecca. Let's hear. If you don't mind, would you let us see your face, or you could just want to? If you just want to.
I'm not at my best in the morning, so I'm not going to put the video, but I don't mind to say it on the group. But exactly, I got chills when I heard the story, because I had the same thing happen to me. It was at the beginning of COVID, and I was going through a very hard time, and I decided, my sister runs a Tehillim group, so I said to her, do you know what, put me on the group, I'm going to try. And she goes, well, we almost closed the group, but we've only got one Tehillim left. And I was thinking, oh my goodness, I hope it's a Tehillim that I connect with. And she goes, we've got this one, and it was Baruchi Nafshi, and it's like literally that is my favorite Tehillim. I love Baruchi Nafshi, and it's long, but I thought, you know what, I'll say that because I love it. Anyway, so I started saying it, and the point of the Tehillim group isn't that we say it every day. It's when someone is ill, there's an alert, and everybody says they're one. And it was before COVID. So I said it once a week. Maybe there was an alert once every 2 weeks. And then when COVID happened, we were literally saying it night and day, every day. And it's a long one. And I had a lot of other things going on. And I thought to myself, I did it almost a year. And then I thought to myself, I can't, it's so long. And I'm also trying to do this and trying to do that. I'm going to have to give up one thing. Let me just give up that. So I said to my sister, listen, I don't think I can commit, and I don't want to be the one part of the group that lets everybody down. So she said, you know what, I'm keeping you on. I understand not everybody can say it every day, but some ladies do want to, but you say it when you can, and that's your Tehillim. So I was like, oh no, that's pressure. But I stopped saying it. She goes, perfectly fine, only say it when you can. Anyway, that Shabbos, I heard that a friend of mine was actually ill, very, very ill. And my old class in high school are reconnected on a group that I've not spoken to like in a million years. And they said, do you mind taking a bit of the Tehillim? It's quite a lot, but if you could say it, that would be really helpful. because we're all saying we want to cover the whole of Tehillim in one day, and we're dividing it all between us. So I said, oh, okay, sure, fine. She said, it's once a week, but this is your Tehillim. I promise you, I got such a shock. It was Baruch Nafshi. I said to myself, Hashem wants me to say this thing. I mean, it's Baruch Nafshi. And I got a whole more chunk of hodus after that. And I was thinking,
Wow.
all right. So you just spread, because I was thinking this morning, oh, do I have to say it? It's so long. And then now that you said that story, I'm like, okay, I have to say it.
But could you imagine, let's say, getting a telegram from the chief rabbi of England? He sends you a telegram. He says, listen, I heard about you. Could you please do me a favor? Only you can do this. On your block lives so-and-so, and I just need a message to deliver it to so-and-so. So let's say he gives you a missima, like a job to do. Let's say the chief rabbi calls you. Whoa, that's a big privilege. It's true, it's a little bit of a schlep, but it's a big privilege. So Hashem sent you a telegram twice. And I'm sure this is not the end of your story, Rebecca. Just Baruch Nafshi probably be in your life.
Thank you. Amen. Amen.
Okay, ladies. Anybody have stories like that? I love to hear stories like that. Amazing.
Can I tell you something to be short?
Yeah.
Talking about the restaurant. Well, there's also something else. If you don't need the restaurant, but you're still need a little help, like a mom with 6 children has no opera house right now. Somehow you get on a list, and all of a sudden you get food delivered to your house, and you don't even know where it came from. That's what happens here in Eretz Israel.
Right, that's right. When I first moved to Eretz Israel, thank you, Simon. When I first moved to Eretz Israel, I got the Har Nof phone book. Every neighborhood gets a phone book. So I was looking something up one day, and I looked in the beginning of the phone book as a list of all the gemachs. The gemachs of the Free Loan Society, right? Do you know that they have every possible gemach? They have pacifiers for babies, gemach.
No, I don't know why I thought that one was the strangest one, and I was thinking as you were saying it, pacifiers for baby gemach.
I remember when my son needed a pacifier. If you lose the one that they like, that's it. You can have 10,000 other, but the shape that they like, they have to have, and they're like, it's like I don't know if it's hygienic, whatever. You boil it before you put it. I guess maybe it's a closed package also. I don't know. I think it's a closed package. They give you a clean pack, a new one. You have to give them back a new one. Yeah. There's everything. There's a gemach for everything here. By the way, nowadays, there's gemachs for all the healing things. Anybody needs vitamins, anybody needs any of the medicines, we have gemachs for them. They're secret gemachs, we have everything. So yeah, you can get food delivered to your door. The famous story of how the Beis HaMikdash was built. Since we're talking about the Beis HaMikdash, one more story. So there was 2 brothers. One had a lot of kids, not a lot of money. One didn't have a lot of kids, didn't have any kids, had a lot of money. So the one who had a lot of kids used to feel sorry for his brother, the lonely one, the bachelor. So he would, in the middle of the night, he would take some, and his wife would bake cake, or the kids would make cookies, and he would take it to his brother's house, put it in the doorstep in the middle of the night, the brother shouldn't see, and leave. And the one who had a lot of money but didn't have a wife or kids, he would bring money in the middle of the night to his brother and leave it on his doorstep. He shouldn't see. And they didn't know. This is doing this for years and years. They didn't know. This is a medrash. And one night, they met in the middle of the night. They met, and halfway, he was going to deliver his money. He was going to deliver his cookies. And they both realized that for years they were supporting each other. And that's the makom of the Beis HaMikdash, where they met in the middle of the field. That's where Hashem built the Beis HaMikdash. I hope we can, Be'ezrat Hashem, kiss the floor already of the Beis HaMikdash. Kiss Hashem. I'm sending you all kisses. Have a great day. I'll see you.